So let's talk about pseudoclasses. Pseudoclasses are basically ways to create, you can create a class for a styles, right? So you could say this class is going to be James, for James. And I'm going to go ahead and create a paragraph tag so that I can separate these two on separate lines. So you can see now that I've separated these into paragraphs, so they're separated so you can see more space. And I'm going to give it a little bit of styling. So I'm going to give this all paragraph tags some spacing. So I'm going to say margin, or let's just do padding. Padding 15 pixels. Save. So it should give me some space on the edge of this. So now you can see there's space in between these paragraphs. So there's a little more room there to work. Okay, so from that standpoint, now I've created paragraph tags. I'm going to create a class for each one of these. Let's just call this absolute and call this one relative. So I'm going to go to my style sheet and I'm going to create a anchor tag and say this is a class. So it's going to be, I had absolute and I had a dot relative. So I'm creating the class selectors here. And the relative, let's just say I'm going to give it a color of red. And I don't like the automatic text decoration underline, so I'm going to give it a text decoration of none. So I'm just going to copy these and put it in the absolute style, and I'm going to save, and then you'll see that these are now different colors. So one's red and one's blue. But I'd like them to be able to do different things. So like when I hover over this, I'd like it to change to a different thing. So for pseudoclasses, the options are hover, visited, link, and active. Now link is just going to be the link in general. So this is basically a link by default. So let's cover what those four pseudoclasses could be. They could be link, visited, hover, and active. Link is the style of a hyperlink that's not been visited previously. Visited is the style that's been visited previously and is present in the browser's memory. So it's something that's already been visited. And then a hover describes when something hovers over the link itself. And then active is when it's in the act of being clicked but hasn't been released yet. So you can change all those specifications if you want to with pseudoclasses. Let's just say I would like the hover specifically to be a different setting. So I've set up my first class, which is a.absolute, but I want my pseudoclass of hover to be green. Save, and then hit refresh, and you can see if I go over the absolute link, it'll now become green. Now, the good thing about a class, if you set up a class and you have a pseudo class after that, you can take off any of the specifications that are already in this first class. And it's just kind of a child, because this is considered a child of this A absolute, because this is basically saying, here's the default for A absolute. Here's what happens when you go on the hover. So the only thing that I want to change is this green. So I don't need to have text decoration underline. That's duplicating the same content. So you can see now I've created a hover. So let me show you the pseudo class for A.absolute. And then it's going to be visited. So this is going to be when a site has already been visited. It's going to be green. So if I hit refresh, you can see it's already turning green because I've already clicked on that link. So that means it's been visited already, and now it's green. So it's just kind of telling you that you've already visited that page. I'm not a huge fan of that, so I just leave it as an absolute pseudo class of hover, and my automatic one is blue. So that's an example of a pseudo class. Now, instead of text, I can also put an image inside these any of these links. So a standard image tag is actually an empty tag, which means you don't have to create a opening and closing tag. So if I wanted to style this image tag inside this anchor link, I can just do image And then I can close it out by just doing the / and the closing bracket. So I can just put the image source and the alt, the width, and the height tags. So each one of those tags are important. These are the 4 standard ones that you need in order to create your image tag. The alt is what text is going to be showing up in place for that image. So I have to look at my image itself and determine what that image is. It's a product, and it's called Spelunker. So I'm just going to give it a title. Spelunker product. So I just want to describe this product basically, and then I can say the source. What is the source of that image? So I'm actually going to use the same hierarchy thing that I did. I have to go into the folder of images because I'm on the pseudo link, which is on the first level of the root folder. So then I'm going to say go inside the images folder, do a / and then put the product name here, product-spelunker.png. So there's the image. I save it, I refresh. Now this automatically shows up, but in some instances I want to declare the actual width and height that it's going to be, because sometimes it'll reformat incorrectly. So if I want to check and see what that image size is, I can go click on the image. Usually I can see the dimensions here, or I can also hit Command I and see, usually the dimensions will show up in the more info section. So there's 2 ways to do that if this doesn't show up here. But your dimensions are going to be 200 pixels is the width and 123 pixels is the height. And that's the way we can make sure that the resolution is showing up exactly as the image is there. Now, if I wanted to change this to 250 pixels, it's going to skew. So you don't want to do that with your images. You want to make sure that you actually put the width and the height that's correct so that your images are showing up correctly. Okay? So now your image is inside of this anchor tag, so it's a link. So I can click on that and it'll go still to that same location that we specified before. But here's this image tag. We can use this without. It doesn't have to be inside the anchor tag to be usable. It just won't have a link to go to in that case. So you can see now there's no hand showing me where it's going to go. So that's how you can create images and use anchor tags and use both of them at the same time. So again, if you want image information for your anchor link, you can have this image like it's set right there, or you can just do text and say, go to my portfolio. And that will be what this text links to, is the portfolio. So you can create whatever you want as the text here.